Welcome back to my channel. Today I'd love to talk about this plant, about propagating this plant, and also two different methods that I discovered. What they know this plant as is either the strawberry begonia or the strawberry geranium. Now, why they call it the strawberry geranium or begonia is because of the shape of the leaves. Now, if you look at the leaves, it actually does look like a geranium, and you can mistake it for a begonia. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. So as I mentioned earlier, is that people do mistake it for a begonia because they do call it a strawberry begonia. But again, it's because of the leaves and the feel of the leaves. And the thing about this plant, although it does look like a begonia too, is look at this leaves. This is what fascinates me, is first of all, the leaf it's got these beautiful silvery vein design on it, and it just makes it so special. I just love looking at this plant. And then what you do notice is at the back of the plant is you get this lovely pinkish color, but this is what makes this plant really attractive. Another thing that makes it attractive, they call it the mother of thousands, is because basically they produce their babies like this. The babies all hang, and that's your propagation. Look at those little babies. And so part of the propagation technique is to collect these little babies, and you can actually leave them to the stolon that is attached to the mother and leave it there until it matures, and then you just cut it off. And it actually does remind me a little bit of the spider plant. Again, the same principle. As it gets its babies, the babies hang, and you can decide either to actually take those babies and put them in your garden, or you just leave it attached to the mother in a hanging pot. And that's exactly what would look lovely with this plant, just hanging in all this trellis of these babies. Now, the other thing about this plant is that it does come in a variegated version, a tricolor. So you do have a leaf that would have white, green and pink. Again, amazing. And again, the same principle as it grows and the babies sort of drop from the stolons, is you could have them in hanging baskets. You could even grow them in rock gardens, because once these do establish as you're doing your rock garden, they will again mature and become whole plants. Another thing is that what they use these plants is for ground cover, especially under trees, because basically the light requirement for this plant, it just loves indirect sun. It doesn't like full sun because the leaves are very fragile. So what is the water requirement? With these plants is I don't give it too much water because they are very delicate. And what happens is that if you do give it too much water, you will definitely get root rot. Also, the other thing is that as you see this plant, I think I had actually divided this plant and made many other cuttings because it did get a foliage like this. And as you water and you're not really watering the soil, or it's constantly humid, moist, is what happens is that you invite things like mealybugs, and I had an infestation of mealybugs. So every time it does get bushy like this, I use it as a chance to propagate and divide them. Now let's look at a propagation. There's two methods I'd like to show you. As we saw with this mother plant, it does have its hanging, and with the hanging is where the little babies actually form. They develop at the tip of this vine that goes down, or the stolon. Now what I would do is that I had my plastic recycled container, made my holes there, and then I took these babies and I literally stuck them in the soil and left it attached to the mother. So what I'm going to do now is actually separate it. So I'm just going to cut this bit off like that. And then what I'm left here is with the babies. Now, when I did stick these babies, because they're very light, what I did to hold them down, I just got a Kirby grip, because the problem is that you don't want them to go too deep into the soil, because as you water, it can go into root rot. You just need them to be sitting at the surface, just holding on to the soil, but not deeply in the soil. So what I did, I've just cut that from the mother of thousands, and I'm going to take it like this and just lightly put it at the surface of the soil and take my Kirby grip and hold it down. So basically, this is one method of actually doing your propagation for our plant here. And what you need to do, again, just lightly water it, because the problem is we don't want it to get too wet and that its baby roots starts to rot. And if you look at this one, this one's turned up quite nicely, this particular one. So that could be one method of propagation. And once those little babies start getting stronger, I would actually use, put it in a slightly bigger container, about that size, let's say 3 inches, 4 inches. And then from there, as it starts producing, you move it into a bigger pot and eventually introduce it as a hanging or whatever you'd like to do with it. Now, the second thing is that this seems to be okay. It's not so overcrowded, and I'm actually quite happy with it. But when I look at this one with its babies, poor thing, it's totally overcrowded. So at this point, as we are talking propagation, what I'm going to do is put my hand in there, and there are so many babies, but what we want to do is actually separate this clump, because what happens is that when it does get too bushy, and with the watering, you may get an infestation of mealybugs, and at the same time, the little babies which are growing underneath don't get enough sort of leeway to actually go out and look for the sun. So I'm just going to show you something. I'm going to literally pull it here out of a clump from the side, and all for your propagation purposes, when you do division, look at all those babies out of that little clump. So out of a clump you can actually get so many babies, and this is a bigger one. And I'm just going to just nip some of these, because what happens is that as they sit and get overcrowded, these leaves are looking for the sun, so they'll be longer and really, what you call it, dangling. They're not strong, but it's also because they need space and they're just trying to get tall enough to get to the top. So what I'm going to do with these ones is I'm just going to pot them. I'm going to keep them in here and deal with them and I think I'll just have them in hanging baskets and have them trellised down, because there's so many, and I will give them to friends. So all we need to do is I'm going to just remove the dangling, just like that. And I'm just going to pot it, just like that. And out of all these little babies, yeah, just empty out if it needs, if it's getting too bushy, and then you end up with so many babies. And what happens is, if you don't have space for them, do what I do, just give them to friends, and they'll be really happy, and they can start their stock of the plant. So fellow gardeners, as I continue making so many baby propagations here, I'd like to thank you for actually joining us on this channel. Learn how to do these things, because in the end, out of one batch of plant, you're actually going to get a multitude. So don't forget to like, to share, and also tell your friends about our channel. And don't forget to press that notification button so you're always well informed. We're on Instagram, follow us there. I do post a lot of my interesting plants or things that I'm really crazy about. And don't forget to write to me, DM me on Instagram, and also on YouTube. I always do try to answer. So thank you very much and have a lovely, lovely day.